paid $6,050 for this when it launched, or $6,500 after taxes, but now it's $8,396 after they've adjusted the price. The markup for this Origin pre-built PC is $1,700 to $2,500 over the cost of DIY. This computer costs as much as an RTX Pro 6000, or a used car today, or a brand new Kia Rio with a lifetime warranty that you'll use because the passenger doors fall off, purchased in 2008. The point is, this computer is very expensive, but it also sucks. The RTX 5090 is the most valuable component in this for its 32 gigabytes of memory, and to show you how much they care about the only reason you'd buy this pre-built, Origin incinerates that memory at 100 degrees Celsius by choosing to not spin the fans for 8 minutes while under load. The so-called premium water cooling that you see here includes tubes made out of discolored McDonald's toy plastic that was left in the sun too long, making it look old, degraded, and dirty. But there are some upsides to this now $8,400 computer. Moving on, it is quiet, to its credit, mostly because the fans don't spin for 8 minutes. Our new B-Stock GN mod mats sponsored this video. That's right, we're sponsoring ourselves. In a time when prices are going up everywhere, we wanted to bring a more affordable large mod mat to all of you. These Volt mod mats are new in box, but have small defects that meant we filtered them out of inventory over the years, and now they're B-Stock. We decided to release these for a steep discount at the lowest price we've ever sold large mod mats for. If you're okay with some imperfections as described on the store page for what are otherwise still high quality mod mats, you can grab a 4-foot by 2-foot large anti-static Volt mod mat for your PC building and repair. These make for amazing rugged work surfaces for projects like PC building, garage or shop work, and more to protect your table with the thick anti-static conductive rubberized material while working on projects. The mats feature screw tracking grids, pinout diagrams, and include a common ground point and wrist strap with them. We have a limited supply of B-Stock mats since not that many fall below our strict quality standards, but they're available now for a big discount on store.gamersnexus.net. This also directly helps fund our in-depth testing, our independent field investigations, groundwork and reviews, and our consumer advocacy. Head over to the store or click the link below, and thanks for your support. Now, originally, this Origin Genesis cost us $6,488, and that's after taxes and before their generous 10% discount code. We had a $672 discount off of the sticker price at the time, which was $6,722. Now, that time was when the 5090 launched, and we placed the order the day that the card launched. We got it a couple months or so later, and at the time, and even now, it was one of the most reliable ways to get another 5090, to buy a pre-built. So the pre-built came in the usual Origin crate that we've become accustomed to, and we reviewed one of these a couple years ago that was a total disaster of a combo. The frequency being 1 gigahertz below where it's supposed to be is a massive up. The system had a severely underclocked CPU, ridiculously aggressive fan behavior, it's like the opposite of today, chipped paint, and a nearly unserviceable hardline custom liquid cooling loop. Hopefully, this one has improved, and hopefully it's not 1 gigahertz below spec this time. We'll start with the pricing because that's the obvious insane place to start. Pricing it out based on the original, pre-tariff, $6,050 build before taxes, and with a 10% off promo, we end up with this comparison chart. And keep in mind the new price is $7,500 to $8,400, depending on when you buy. The good news is that nothing is proprietary. All the parts are standard, so that's nice. The bad news is that this means we can directly compare it to retail parts, which at the time we wrote this piece would cost $4,493, making for a $1,557 markup compared to the pre-tax subtotal. That's a huge amount to pay for somebody to screw the parts together. Given the price of the system, the MSI Pro B650P Wi-Fi motherboard in this list and the 1TB SSD are stingy, and the 7000D airflow case is old. The parts don't match the price. Just 2 months after we ordered and around when it finally arrived, Origin now offers a totally different case and board with the Gigabyte X870E Aorus Elite. The base SSD is still just 1TB though, only good enough for roughly 2 or 3 full Call of Duty installs. The Call of Duty install threshold in our reviews is 5, by the way, to get a passing grade, plus Windows. The detailed packing sheet lists 22 various water cooling fittings, but curiously, the build itself only has 15, plus 1 more in the accessory kit, making it 16 by our count. We have no idea how Origin got 22 here, but it's not 22. Hopefully, we weren't charged for 22. Oh, and it apparently comes with, quote, 1 integrated high definition. Good, that's good. We wouldn't want 0 integrated high definitions. Similar to last time, you also get, quote, the Origin difference, unrivaled quality and performance, end quote, as a line item. Putting intangible, unachievable promises on the literal receipt is the Origin way. And unfortunately for them, or maybe fortunately, Origin's quality is rivaled. I don't know if that's a compliment to the competitors or an insult. I guess it depends on what you think of the quality of this once we're done with the review. Against DIY, this pricing is extreme and it's insane. You're in the $1,500 to $1,600 range as purchased at the time of purchase, or now with the new prices, $1,700 to $2,400, depending on the time that it's bought, and that's just to have it all screwed together and assembled. And this is against competitors in the SI, the system integrator space, who can do this type of build for a $500 to $800 markup, or cost over DIY, we should say more clearly, and this just is not worth it. For this to be worth $1,500 or more than DIY parts value, it would need to be immaculate, and it's not. So the only real value for this, at least as we've received it and at the time we bought it, would be for the 5090. But let's take a look at that, because finding a 5090 Founders Edition now for $2,000 is an increasingly unlikely scenario. Lately, price increases with scarcity and tariffs have resulted in 5090s being sometimes $2,800, sometimes more. So the markup with that instead, if we assume a $2,800 5090 in this build, would still be at $777. That's still a big markup. The motherboard is still disappointing, the tubes are still discolored, the SSD is too small, and it still has problems like the fan's no spin when GPU get hot. But in the very least, at least it's less insane of a markup. Getting into the parts choices, this new Genesis has a loop that's technically set up better than the last one, but it only cools the CPU. That means we have a $6,500 computer after taxes with water cooling, but only on the coolest of the 2 silicon parts, the one that pulls under 150 watts. That leaves the 575 watt RTX 5090 FE to fend for itself, and that doesn't always go well. Now originally, the Origin 5090 didn't have a water block option for the 5090. It was only the air-cooled Founders Edition card, which is just a shame. It's a shame that Origin isn't owned by some multinational conglomerate that manufactures and designs water cooling components, owns its own factories, and transacts billions of dollars of revenue per year, that probably has sway with NVIDIA and can get its attention to design cooling blocks for launch. A damn shame. Oh well, we'll buy from a bigger company next time. But there's good news, at least now with the new sticker price of $8,400 or maybe $7,500, or maybe there's no tariffs today and maybe they've doubled. Who the hell knows? You can spend another $200 and add a water block to the GPU. So problem solved. And as usual, the problem was solved with money. So here's a closer look at the system. This is the included saggy, discolored routing of water cooling components they have with that nice well-hydrated catheter enthusiast coloring to it. You're welcome for the visual. Now, what we thought and what was written into the script is that the tubing is the problem, because the tubing should look like the included drain tube that they give you, which is this. Let's just hopefully the color balance on the camera can show the difference here. That's what it should look like. Now, what we wrote into the script originally, 2 weeks ago, before I got to filming this, was the liquid is fine in the loop, and the block contents are fine. But if we take a look at the inside of the block, now 2 weeks after that line was written, and we'll get a different close-up of this too, but there's already something suspicious inside of the block. So what we're gonna do is in the teardown I'm doing today, I'm not gonna drain the liquid. I'm gonna just detach the CPU block from it, let it hang over there, and then we'll remount it all later, and we'll keep running it. And we'll check in a couple months and see if that problem has gotten worse. Now, Corsair says its XT softline tubing, which is what it's using, is, quote, UV-resistant tubing made to withstand the test of time without any discoloration or deforming. Just to be clear, without any discoloration or deforming. So that's, well, the tubing is developing that nice gross patina to it that water cooling components can get sometimes. It shouldn't look gross. The spare piece in the accessory kit doesn't look gross, so we don't know why this does. The coolant is even Corsair's own XL8 clear fluid, making it even more inexcusable. Now, we're not the only ones to have caught this problem. We found several posts online with the same issue and very little in the way of an official response from Corsair or Origin. We only saw one reply asking the user to contact support. Now, even without the discoloration, the loop just comes across as amateurish. I mean, it shouldn't look like this. It is difficult to get tubing runs to look nice and clean and have kind of a more taut look to them rather than what we have going on here. And one of the ways to solve that challenge is by being a company that makes literally every single part that is in this loop and then making it nice. Now, there is one positive thing we can say about this build. Corsair listened. They added a ball valve down here to make it easier to drain. This was actually something we complained about last time, and well, here it is. How do I convince Origin to put drain valves on their computers? I don't want to do this anymore. Oh no, my customer crushed his head trying to drain the computer. So we're glad to see that addressed. Now, before taking this apart, one more thing. The fans in the build are part of Corsair's relatively new Link family. So they're all daisy chains together with a single USB-C-esque cable and controlled together in tandem by two of Corsair's hubs. It's an interesting, if expensive, system that extends to include the pump and CPU block, both of which have liquid temperature sensors. So enough of all that. Now we're going to actually do the teardown and disassembly and just see if there's any other problems in the assembly process. Hopefully there's positives. Hopefully, like last time, I haven't personally looked yet. The cable management is immaculate, but we'll find out now. So let's get into the teardown. I'm going to start with the cable management. All right, let's get started with this. So, well, I'd say the cable management's pretty good. Okay, good. I was very concerned we were going to open that to like some kind of spaghetti monster. Oh, okay. All right, everything's under control. So first of all, the dust filter over there is taped in with masking tape. I'm actually okay with that. I mean, you can remove it. That's to keep it in place in shipping. Internally, so they've included all these unused cables in the accessory box. Talk about that later. That's actually a very good thing. The cable runs and pathways, this makes sense. So they're going clear up to the EPS 12 volt here. It is... They've tied the cables together there, but they haven't tied them to the chassis. Same, oh no, that one is connected to the chassis, that's good. This is on the chassis. So they've got most of it kind of secured down. Looks good there. Up here, so they're using the cable management channel in the center for the 24-pin GPU power and all the other stuff going to the board, except for USB coming from the front panel. This is well managed. So this is really clean. They've done well here. Let's take a look at, there's the 5090, there's the power cable. It's mostly seated. I would say that is at a stage where it is not a concern. Okay, I haven't actually worked with these yet. So this has got this piece of plastic on here, which actually served as a pull tab to remove it from the block. So that was actually kind of nice. That's what the end of it looks like. But I mean, that's more of a product level thing. They do sell these as individual products, Corsair that is. So that's a nice small attention to detail element. All right, so the screws are captive, which is another nice small ease of installation thing. That is also a product level thing, but hey, the product's in their system, so fair game. You can see by the pattern it was pre-applied paste, so they used the silk screen. That's what gets you the polygon pattern. And then that actually did allow contact to all 8 legs of the IHS. So the AMD IHS here actually looks really good. So this they did well. The pressure, from what I'm looking at, looks pretty even, so it's a little bit lighter on this right side than it is on the left over here. But pressure distribution's overall good, and the block application was good, so no complaints there. This is CPU fan header, fully seated, no problem. 24 pin, fully seated. Front panel USB-C, fully seated. This we already said was mostly fully seated. We have all the front panel I/O, also all fully seated. USB 3.0 is correct. Any crushed pins? No crushed pins. And the USB 3, that's good. USB 2, HD audio. That was over here actually. Everything is plugged in, fully seated, looks good. So they got it. It was all secure. They've done well there. Let's get the EPS removed. I've now popped both of my wrists trying to get this cable out. Okay, we've rescued the valuable component and the 9800X3D. Okay, good. I was worried for a second. So no plastic on the thermal pad. The thermal pad is making contact. It probably doesn't show up great on camera, but there's a few indentations on it. So we're all good there. The RAM is in the correct slots. So this is Corsair 36, 44, 44, 96. Not the fastest, not the tightest times there. 16 gigabyte DDR5 6000. Not the greatest timings, that is for sure. The rest is just the motherboard. Let's check on the screws. We always do that. First one's good. That one was fine until I turned it. Fine. Fine. Okay. Screws seem good. Okay, everything looks fine. So then the board is really the last thing to look at. I mean, it is, like we said earlier, a lower end board than I'd like to see in a computer this expensive. No problems. All right, that's it for the teardown. So the rest of it is fans. I mean, the fans are like immaculately installed. And part of that is the way they're connecting them together. So it's not like the days of the past where you'd have 2 to 3 cables, I mean 2 realistically for each of these fans, kind of all strung through the back. It's very clean. Oh my God, the front is heavy. So there's a massive radiator, that's why. So overall, very clean on the cable management. The assembly was mostly good, leaving, again, most of the problems to be the ones we've already discussed, which are the value and the water cooling. But I didn't drain the loop, so we're going to keep running it and see what it looks like in a couple months, I guess, or a little later. We'll see. We'll check in once it gets nice and crispy. So let's get into the benchmarks. Getting into the benchmarking, we'll start with the thermals. Right away, the 96-degree result on the memory junction is a problem, especially because this is an average, which means we have spikes periodically to 100 degrees. The technical rating on this memory is 105 degrees for safety spec at max. So this is getting way too close, and it's hotter than what we saw in our 5090 FE review. This is when all the thermal pads are brand new, too. The Origin Prebuilt uses a large case with 12 fans, so it should be impossible for a GPU to be this hot. The Ryzen 9800X3D hit 87 degrees Celsius at steady state, which is also not great for how much cooling's in this box. All of the various motherboard and general system temperature sensors fell well within acceptable ranges, though. The water cooling parts provide a couple of liquid temperatures. The pump is on the cool side of the loop and read 36.7 degrees Celsius at steady state, while the coolant in the block on the hot side of the loop got up to 41.3 degrees Celsius. You typically want liquid temperature to stay under 55 degrees Celsius at the most to not violate spec on the pump and tubing, so this is fine. We need to plot these over time, though, to uncover some strange behavior. CPU temperature during the test starts out on a slow ramp upwards during the idle period. When the CPU load first starts, we see an immediate jump to about 72 degrees Celsius, a brief drop, then a long and steady rise from roughly 250 seconds to 750 seconds into the test, where it levels off at the 87 degrees Celsius mark. VRM temperature follows the same general curve, but takes longer to reach steady state. Add the liquid temperatures to the chart shows the same breakpoints. Finally, adding pump and fan speeds gives us the big reveal for why the curves look like this. The pump stair steps up in speed while the temperatures rise, but the fans don't even turn on for over 8 minutes here into the load's runtime. Once they're actually running, they average out to just 530 RPM, which is so slow that they might as well be off. This is an awful configuration. Response to liquid temperature isn't new, but this is done indiscriminately. It's without any thought whatsoever. If you tie all the fans to liquid temperature, and if you have parts not cooled by liquid, like the memory on the video card, then you're gonna have a bad time. And that's the next chart. But before that one, this is an overcorrection overall, we think, from how Origin handled the last custom loop PC we reviewed from the company, which immediately ramped the fans up as high as it could as soon as the CPU started doing anything. Hopefully now they can find a middle ground since we've found the two extremes of thoughtless cooling. This chart shows GPU temperatures versus GPU fan speed. The GPU temperature under load rises to around 83 degrees Celsius before coming back down when the case fans finally kick on. As a reminder, 83 to 84C is when NVIDIA starts hard throttling the clocks more than just from GPU boost. So they're dropping clocks as a result of this configuration. The 5090's VRAM already runs hot on an open bench, 89 to 90 degrees Celsius, and that gets pushed up to a peak of about 100 degrees Celsius in the Origin Prebuilt. This plainly is unacceptable. Adding the GPU fan speed to the chart shows us how the Founders Edition cooler attempts to compensate by temporarily boosting speed to 56% during this time, which also means that Origin isn't even benefiting as much from the noise levels as it should be from the slower fans. Balancing them better would benefit noise more. As neat of a party trick as it is to have the case fans stay off unless they're needed in the loop, Origin should have kept at least one or two running at all times, like rear exhaust, to give the GPU some help. Besides, letting the hot air linger could potentially encourage local hotspots to form on subcomponents that aren't even monitored, and that could lead to problems. Now we'll look at full system load power consumption by logging it at the wall, so everything, even efficiency losses from the power supply, would be taken into account here. Idle, it pulled a relatively high 125 watts. At the 180-second mark, the CPU load kicks in. There's a jump at 235 seconds when the GPU load kicks in. We see a slight ramp upwards in power consumption after that, which tracks with increasing leakage as the parts heat up, before settling in at an average of 884 watts steady state. Next, we'll cover dBA over time, as measured in our hemianechoic chamber. At idle, the fans are off, which makes for a functionally silent system at the noise floor. The first fans to come on in the system are the GPU, bringing noise levels up to a still quiet range of 25 to 28 dBA at 1 meter. The loudest point is 30.5 dBA when the GPU fans briefly ramp and before system fans kick in. For CPU frequency, fortunately for Origin, it didn't randomly throttle it by like a gigahertz this time. The 9800X3D managed to stay at 5225 megahertz during the CPU-only load portion of the torture test, the same frequency that we recorded in our original review for the CPU, so that's good. At steady state, with the GPU dumping over 500 watts of heat into the case, the average core frequency dropped by 50 megahertz. If Origin made better use of its dozen or so fans, it should have more of that frequency held onto. BIOS for the Origin Prebuilt is set up sensibly, at least. The build date is January 23rd, which was the latest available at the time between when we ordered the system at the 50 series launch and when the system was actually assembled. Scrutinizing the chosen settings revealed nothing out of line. DDR5 6000 memory profiling was enabled, and the rest of the core system settings were properly set to auto, so this was all fine. The Windows install was normal. That's also good. There's no bloatware. The desktop had a few things on it, so it had, quote, a link Windows 10 key to Microsoft account, end quote, PDF, which is helpful for people who don't know what to do if their system shows the Activate Windows watermark. Confusingly, it hasn't been updated to say Windows 11 instead of 10, but we can all dream. It also shepherds the user towards using a Microsoft account, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but we don't like how it makes it seem necessary because it's not and you shouldn't. There's also an Origin PC README PDF that doesn't offer much except coverage for Origin's ass, with disclaimers and points for contact for support. One useful thing is that it points the user towards the Origin PC folder on the C drive to find what it calls, quote, important items. That folder has Origin branded GIFs, logos, and wallpapers, as well as CPU-Z, TeamViewer, and a results folder. TeamViewer is almost certainly for Origin's support teams to be able to remotely inspect the PC during support calls. Makes sense to have this stuff on here. The results folder contains an OCC test report that shows a total of 1 hour and 52 minutes of testing. A CPU test for 12 minutes, CPU and RAM, memory, and a 3D adaptive test for 30 minutes each, and then it finishes with 10 minutes of OCCT's power test, which is a combined full system load. It's great that Origin actually does testing and provides this log as a baseline for future issues and just for base expectations. This is good. Gives you something to work from. They don't have OCCT pre-installed though, so for a user to actually run this again as a comparison, we think it's a support oversight. They're not leveraging this as well as they could, but it's free for personal use at least, so the user can go download it easily. There weren't any missing drivers in Device Manager, and NVIDIA's 572.47 driver from February 20th was the latest at the time of the build, so both of these are good things. There wasn't any bundled bloatware installed either, points to Origin for that, and then iCUE itself isn't as bad as it used to be, but it's still clunky, like the preloaded fan profiles not showing their set points. On to packaging. The Origin Genesis Prebuilt came in a massive wooden crate that was big enough for 2 people to need to move around. Considering this PC was $6,500 after taxes at the time, we're definitely okay with the wooden crate, and its QR code opening instructions were nice to see. Origin uses foam, a fabric cover, a cardboard box within the crate, and the crate itself for the PC. The case had 2 packs of expanding foam inside of it, allowing the GPU to arrive undamaged and installed. The sticker on the side panel also had clear instructions. All of these are good. They seem to have done well with the packaging. Unfortunately, there's a small chip in the paint on top of the case, but it's not as bad as the last Origin paint issues we had, and we think it's unrelated to the packaging itself. Finally, the accessory kit is basic, and it came inside of a box with the overused cringy adage, "Eat, Sleep, Game, Repeat" printed on it. Inside are the spare PSU cables, which we're happy to see included, an AC power cable, stock 5090 FE power adapter, standard motherboard and case accessories, a G-quarter plug tool and accessories, and a piece of soft tubing with a fitting on one end that can be used to help drain the cooling loop. And all of this is good. So obviously you should not buy this. And during the time we were working on this, that became even more true with the price increase. And again, part of that price increase, it's not directly Corsair or Origin's fault. These are actual cost increases that are happening in real time. But it doesn't change the fact that it is not worth the money. It wasn't worth it when it was cheaper. It's not worth it now. And the DIY parts cost is just, it's too far below this, where even if you don't want to build you are vehemently against building a computer, which is totally fine. That is a valid way to go, where there's stuff I don't want to work on either because I have my specialty, and that's what I focus on. So if you're like, you know what, I just want to buy a computer and use it, and I don't need to learn how to do the rest of this, I don't have the time, whatever, that's fine. But please, please just walk away from this video knowing that there are better alternatives to this that are pre-assembled. So now, for the same configuration today, the Genesis costs $7,557 after the discount off the new sticker price of $83.96. That's an increase of over $1,000, making the premium over current DIY pricing roughly $1,700 to $2,500, and that is also with the modern prices. Now again, there are good reasons for the price to go up. The tariffs have a real impact on pricing, and we're gonna see that everywhere. It's not just Corsair and Origin. So we don't see that as the problem. The problem is, once again, the value against alternatives. At $8,400 sticker price, or $7,500 marked down, or whatever, you'd have to be drunk on whatever is discoloring Origin's loop to buy it. Nobody should buy this, especially not for gaming. If you're doing productivity work, or some type of machine learning workload, or AI, or whatever, and you need the 32 gigabytes of memory and the 5090, the cost of this whole computer is the cost of an RTX Pro 6000, which is like 96 gigabytes of video memory and better. So just think about that as well. I mean, it would actually be cheaper to get scalped for a 5090 on eBay and then buy the whole rest of the computer than to buy this to get the 5090. That's how crazy this is. What's even crazier is that the upcharge, even assuming a 5090 price of $2,800, is higher even than Alienware. Alienware is cheaper at this point by thousands of dollars. And just to reiterate that, Alienware. Just so we're all clear. But anyway, we can't recommend this. Ignoring the price, let's just put all that aside. You have infinite money, nothing matters in terms of price. The memory on the card, which is the most valuable thing on it, like the reason you buy a 5090 is for the extra memory. That's where they've segmented the products. It's hitting 100 degrees Celsius in workloads when the fans aren't turning on, because the fans are set to turn on based on the liquid temperature, and the liquid doesn't touch the GPU. So, like, even for that reason, it gets a failing grade. For our thermal testing, the pre-builts, they have to pass the torture test. If they don't, they instantly fail. That's how it always works for our pre-built reviews. This one has unfortunately instantly failed. But I guess if you go elsewhere to look for builds, just remember that with Origin, you can eat, sleep, game, and repeat. Now I just need it on a door hanger, and we'll have a competitor to XFX circa 15 years ago. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net, please. It helps out directly because this is very expensive. At least we'll be able to get to use the CPU and the GPU. But you can go to the store to help us out and grab a PC building anti-static mod mat, or our project and soldering mats, our mule mugs with the thermal conductivity lasered into them, and they're copper-plated stainless steel mule mugs, or our dice kits for tabletop gaming and RPGs. But that's it for this one. Subscribe for more. Go to patreon.com/gamersnexus. Throw us a few bucks, and we'll see you all next time.